say it in the call. Hey!
And you are now live.
Thank you, Aisha. Welcome, everyone, to tonight's FBS Chat with John Pihlaja. Have I said that right, Pihlaja?
It's P-I-H.
All right, okay.
Yeah, so you think of the H as being silent. It'll come out Pihlaja, which is fine.
Brilliant. Thank you for joining us.
That's how I heard it most of the time in my native Toronto.
Right. So welcome, John. Thank you for joining us. And my co-host is Veronica. Hello, Veronica.
Hi, guys.
So Veronica works with us at Family-Based Solutions, and she's had sessions with John.
Yes.
And hopefully she'll be able to give us her view from a client's perspective, I guess. So John, welcome.
Thank you.
You're head and CEO of the Helsinki Psychotherapy Institute.
Yeah.
I've looked at your CV. It is incredibly long, very solution oriented, 40 years working in this field. So what is it about solution oriented?
Close to 50.
Yeah, and you've tried many different, I've looked at it, there's NLP, there's narrative therapy, solution focused therapy, Gestalt where you started. But so I guess my first question is, what attracted you to solution oriented therapy or way of working?
Oh dear. It's a that could be a long story. I started 1971 training with Maharishi Mahesh Yogi as a teacher of transcendental meditation. That's nowadays it's mindfulness, or the third wave of cognitive therapy, etc. But I got interested in Carl Jung's work, and from Carl Jung's work, mostly through literature, I got interested in Gestalt therapy, which is a very, very direct and powerful brief therapy of the day. And it was like a royal road to the heart of your trauma in a matter of minutes. and it can be pretty dramatic stuff. And so I was giving workshops. I did a 2.5-year training, a full psychotherapy training of the day. And I was giving weekend workshops. And it could be like pretty dramatic, and people were crying and laughing and agonizing and having amazing epiphanies and cathartic processes, etc. And I was pretty happy with myself. I was getting to be a good Gestalt therapist. But then I noticed that sometime around 83, I noticed that meeting with people later after a workshop, I would remember that this person that I met on the marketplace did amazing work, amazing realizations, etc., etc. And then I asked the person, so how are you doing? Oh, yeah, okay. Is your husband still beating you? Yeah. And that sort of thing, because the idea, and the Freudian and Gestalt idea, is that when you realize why you've become like this or whatever, then that realization changes everything instantly. Mm. So that's the basic premise of psychodynamic and psychoanalytic and Gestalt and similar based therapies. And it was a professional crisis for me. I realized that this theory doesn't work. It predicts that everybody having a powerful emotional realization should change immediately and permanently. Mm. And it wasn't happening. It was happening, yes, I saw some amazing turnarounds in people's lives, but a lot of the time, these epiphanies were not translated into changes in day-to-day life. And so that started me into what I now see as a solution-focused step. Instead of having more and more intensity all the way through the weekend, all the way to Sunday evening, just before they have to leave for their train, instead of giving them more for their money in that way, I started around noon asking, okay, so you did some amazing work with yourself, and you've described some really amazing realizations. What would you be doing in this coming week differently now that you've realized these things, etc., and go through the group. And and that was some first tentative steps toward a future orientation.
Mm-hmm.
Because the premise from which I was working before it didn't work. So that got me interested in cognitive and behavioral therapies, and fairly soon, around 85, 86, into solution focused. And around that time, I was my main work was training mental health professionals and social work professionals, and I was doing that, touring the country in summer university programs and university advanced training centers programs, training professionals. But I never figured out how I could have a truck with 25 mattresses and cart that around from university to university and have people do their Gestalt thing. But I was never able to create a pedagogy how to teach that, because we lay around doing dream work and relaxation and mind travels and whatever, and I never figured out how to bring that into a professional advanced training context. It would have taken years, and typically I was given 2 days or 5 days. So what can I teach in 2 days or 5 days? And what really got me addicted to solution focused was its trainability. Mm. It didn't take 2.5 years, 2.5 days, that people were picking up things that they were taking into their everyday work, and then coming for a follow-up day a month later, and then I would hear all of the wonderful things that they've been doing, and that was addicted. And this, I'm not sure there's a treatment for this.
Is it? So it sounds like from what you're saying is that clients came to a deep realization of maybe where the problems stem from, but had no direction after that. Is that where the solution focus came in?
That's where it came in. Yep, exactly.
So I wanted to ask, so when you were when you had this epiphany, when you, as you said, professional crisis, I would say a professional step up, when you kind of thought about, did you know at that point about solution focus? Because you know a lot, you did a lot of psychology training and everything, so I can imagine that you had some knowledge about what was happening. But I want to know, did you know the depths of it, or did it kind of came together at the same time when you started asking the question, if you know what I mean?
I did work with with a mentor of mine, a dear colleague, who introduced me to Rogerian therapy sometime in the late 70s. And the idea of working in a more client-centered way was already familiar to me. And there's a foundation in Finland, the Mannerheim Children's Protection Society, which has been instrumental in bringing or spreading solution focused in Finland. They actually had some Rogerian based programs in the late 70s that I was already familiar with. So the idea of working in a more client-centered way was already familiar, and then when I got solution focused came along as a brand, in a training given by Ben Foreman and his colleague Tapani Ahola, the big pioneers in Finland. One day of training with them, by them, was a big step forward, because already that one day gave me lots of new things to work with, and very soon that was the core of my trainings with professionals. So from about the mid 80s onward.
So I suppose my next question is, so you said before when you spoke to your client, you noticed that there might have been some changes, but the realization didn't lead to any day-to-day changes in their lives. So I suppose my question is, so what difference did it make to them once you start putting the solution focus into it? Because I know you like to keep in touch with your clients to see how they get on.
Yeah, so I wasn't as systematic about it as I am nowadays. But keeping contact open has been for a long time, has been part of my own learning. So to hear what the changes have actually been or not been, etc. So working with individual clients in a therapy context, I typically ask when we seem to be done and the person is happy with the goals that were set and the changes that we've seen together over the sessions. I ask the person to contact me in some way or other, like 2 months onward, for example, and tell me how you're doing, because it's important for me, for my learning. And it's very rare that they don't very happily report to me and tell me about the goings on. And it's for me, it's important learning.
I think that's great to mention, because I think as a professionals, it's important for us to keep growing and keep learning. And because every client is different, it never stops the learning, I would say, for any of us.
Yeah.
Well, structures, the way things are structured in society, when somebody comes to your or somebody arrives at a mental institution, the professionals there have the whole history, the whole horrible history is all there for them to read through, and then they work with the person for a while, and the person somehow settles down and is more calm and collected and goes off and continues his life. But the staff of that unit will never hear what actually happened, how it turned out. And that's a structural problem, and I can't think of an easy solution to that. That's one thing that makes it, in some contexts, makes it more difficult to keep learning.
Can I jump in for a second? Joe's probably got 1,000 questions that he wants to ask. But so Veronica met you at UKASFP conference that was held in Colchester. And when she returned with her colleagues, she became very annoying because she kept talking about you, John, and how much she appreciated your work, and she's no longer going to be chocolate.
My apologies. Sorry.
What apologies? Because she wouldn't stop talking about you. Yeah, you need to apologize. She just would not stop.
I think guys in the office never realized how much chocolate I've been actually eating, because they might have seen me in the office in the morning or a little bit in the afternoon. But my husband, he was the most shocked, and I would say the most wouldn't believe when I first came home and I said, I'm not eating chocolate. This is what John did for me. It took 8 minutes. Or we talked about. He was like,
No.
well, you can't be off it. Like, I mean, that couldn't have happened in that, first of all, in that short period of time. And second of all, like, you live on that stuff. So in the office, they didn't believe that I'm going to hold on. My husband didn't really believe. And I thought, well, going back before I met you, John, thinking about any addiction, I always believe that when you're going through it, you need a strong support system. Because, people who are addicted to alcohol, they need to have the strong support system. They have interventions where all their family is being careful, not eating, not drinking in front of them. If they're going out, everybody is very kind of, oh, don't mention that, let's not mention the past.
Yes.
And for me, I buy chocolate for my kids. I can bake a chocolate cake and not eat it. My mom has baked summer and I have not touched a chocolate. I don't even want to smell it. People don't need to support me with that. And I think that's something I have never even thought about, that I didn't need help from anyone else. And I think that was what took me by complete surprise, because as of in the next few days, it's been 3 months since the last time, because I remember just before I came to your session in the conference, to your workshop, I had a chocolate bourbon biscuit just in the conference with my little tea, and that was the last
stash.
That was the last chocolate I've ever eaten. So for me, that was the fact that the way you ask solution-focused questions, the way it was all structured, it made me realize that I don't want to do that for those reasons we discussed. And I think that is, for me, that was so powerful. And then realizing later that I don't need the support of others. And I don't mind, because my colleagues were, are you sure? Can I eat this Mars bar? Are you okay with that? I genuinely couldn't care less, like eat it next to my face. It doesn't bother me, So
what is the magic cure? What did you do? And can you do it to the rest of us?
Probably. It might, sometimes it might take longer than 8 minutes.
Yeah.
But part of where this approach came from stems from some ideas from cognitive therapy. Judith Beck was the daughter of Aaron Beck, who is the most famous and grand master of cognitive therapy. He didn't start it, that was Albert Ellis, but nonetheless, Aaron Beck's daughter, Judith Beck, has developed ways of working with eating problems. And what struck me in reading about her work was was that with an eating problem, her way of working is that for 3 months, no changes whatsoever are to be made in the eating.
Mhm.
In other words, the relationship to food needs to change before starting to make outward changes. And that sounded, and that's the psychological aspect of addictions. Regardless of the elements of physical addiction, for example, there's always a component of psychological addiction, a belief, for example, that I cannot live without this. And if that belief is strong, then trying to talk a person out of the addiction is almost like asking the person to kill himself.
Mm.
It doesn't. It's not in providing the person doesn't want to kill himself, of course. So changing the relationship to the substance or the behavior in Judith Beck's system is critical. And the other wonderful element of her work is that after your relationship to food has changed, then only small changes are allowed. In other words, don't make changes, yes, but only changes that are so small that you can promise sincerely and confidently promise to yourself that you can keep them for the rest of your life. And from my solution-focused perspective, yes, the small steps, and the small steps, they need to be perceived as possible. That's critically important when working with depressed people, because your client can start to recover, and then there's great danger that the therapist will get excited and oh well, what can you do next, and start encouraging the person and create a danger of a really life-threatening danger of relapse, because the next step has to be perceived as possible with outside in the real world, and not just here talking with you because I'm feeling okay because I've had a shower today, and today I'm pretty much okay, and I'm probably not going to kill myself today. So here with you, I'm fine. And oh yeah, okay, I'll go out and get myself a job tomorrow, or something. So allowing a person to, working with depressed people, the more seriously depressed the person is, the more important it is to do like strategic braking, BRAKING. So slowing down the process to make sure the steps are manageable, even on a bad day. And that will apply to working with addictions as well. Unless there's a total change in the whole relationship to the substance or the activity changes so dramatically that there's no need for like further practice or further safeguards or further support, etc. So if the craving disappears, then you don't need a support network.
Yeah. I'm interested in the you talk about the relationship with the substance. Can you talk more about what do we mean by the relationship with, and if I have a relationship with it, what do I replace that with? What's my other relationship going to be?
The relationship, there's a very, very deep principle of solution-focused therapy and solution-focused practice. That's a much deeper thing than the amazing 8 tools that came out of the BFTC, and that's utilization. And the principle of utilization says that anything that happens is potentially useful, even when it might traditionally seem to be something not good. So in a person's relationship with a substance or a behavior, washing hands or eating chocolate or whatever, that can be thought of as a means to a goal. So in terms of alcohol, this means that the drive to drink is actually, it's not a drive to drink. It's not the alcohol.
Mm.
It's the promise associated with the alcohol. And and working with people in alcohol rehabilitation and AA, et cetera, that came clear, that dawned on me. It was an epiphanical moment when the trainer, working with a group of alcoholics, there were about a dozen of them, and myself and their main trainer, and he was telling about what booze had promised him. So he'd been on the wagon for about 15 years, and before that he'd been like drinking every day for 20 years, and so he really knew what he was talking about. And he told these people that were very carefully and fearfully considering maybe trying to reduce their use. He told them that that booze promised me that I would be 6 feet tall and bulletproof. And this guy was a Laplander up to here on me. And so for that person in that particular physical stature and that part of the country, being 6 feet tall is something like really, really amazing. Okay. And but the thing is that the promise, booze doesn't fulfill the promise. And his life experience was that booze did not make me 6 feet tall. It took away from my stature and made me not bulletproof. It made me more and more vulnerable to all sorts of things. So the addiction is a promise of something that it will destroy over time.
Right. Okay.
But the promise. Now there we have something that's actually very closely related. I believe it's the same stuff as the miracle. And so the attraction to whatever it is can be formulated as a miracle. So for just as a brutal example, imagine you go to sleep tonight and you get into the covers and starting to relax. And while you're sleeping, a miracle happens, and a miracle such that that you can be appropriately drunk forever, all day, every day, for the rest of your life, without taking a drop.
Oh. Mm. Okay.
But you don't know this is happening because you're asleep. And so in the morning, you start waking up, and what might be the first little thing you might notice that's a bit different is that you don't know that you're appropriately drunk without a single drop of alcohol.
Mm. Wow.
And build on that. Okay, and then what would your spouse notice, and what would your cat notice, and how would that change your relationship with your boss? Not talking about, wouldn't it be nicer to go to work if you didn't have a hangover? No. So the promise of the object of addiction is totally, absolutely, totally individual.
Yeah. Yeah.
No two drunkards drink for the same reason. One wants relief from an anxiety, another to deal with a major source of guilt, a third person because it provides social satisfactions. If you try to denigrate that or contradict that in any way, you're trying to take away something that's dear to him.
Yeah.
I don't want to be alone, but then what happens with the drink is that after a while, you don't have any friends left, except the ones that want to borrow money from you for their next bottle.
Yeah.
And if you keep on drinking, then after a while, you won't have those friends either, because you won't have any money to lend to anybody. So the addiction always destroys, in the long run, what it promises in the short run.
Wow. That's really, I'm thinking a lot of thoughts at the moment. I think the first thing that comes to mind is it's almost like going with the grain. Okay, this alcohol, this addiction, whatever it is promising you something.
Yeah.
But what you're asking them to do is almost imagine a life with the addiction still there, but what would you be doing?
All of the benefits.
Yeah.
All of the benefits that it promises you, but without the substance or the behavior or whatever.
Without the negative side effects of it, in terms of not just your mental health, but your physical health. But what you're saying to them is you really should stop drinking, because you know it's going to damage your liver and which they've probably heard a million times before.
But I don't say that.
Yeah. That's what I'm getting at.
I don't ever say that. I do one way. Part of this method is to really flesh out the promise, the promises, and this will be familiar from the technique of externalizing. So, what does alcohol like? Okay, and what does it not like, etc. Okay, so that would be fairly standard solution-focused work. But this is taking that a step farther. What is booze promising you? What is a promise that's so big that it keeps you drinking, even though you know, obviously you've already talked about the detrimental effects, and so I don't need to tell you about them. That wouldn't make any sense. So what is it promising you that's so big, so important, that it keeps you doing this, even though you have all the knowledge about the detrimental effects? So it's something big, and here we're closing in on the deepest motivations that a person could ever have. The worse the addiction, the bigger the promise, the deeper the motivation for change.
Sorry, John, I'm just going to post a question from Jason because I think it's very, very relevant. So he's asking, does the same rule apply when the person doesn't believe they have an addiction? They don't see that there's a problem. So when they haven't realized that, they're not aware that it's an addiction.
But that's a good question, because, yeah, traditionally, and this is an almost Lutheran concept or Protestant concept, that you have to confess your sin. You have to admit to wrongdoing. You have to admit to a problem before you can get help for it. And I don't believe that. Because you can work around that easily. So your wife has a problem with your drinking, and she forced you to come here. Okay, I wonder what would help your wife be more calm. When is she more friendly to you, or etc.? And when do you have good times because you have a problem because she has a problem. And he wouldn't be there unless he was coerced into coming. So he has a problem in being coerced. So there's always something you can work from, and it doesn't necessitate admitting to having a problem yourself.
I was just thinking, when we had your workshop, the first thing you ask, does anybody have any addictions? Around the room, there was about 30 of us, maybe a bit more. And I didn't think I had a problem. I genuinely didn't think I had a problem. But during your workshop, you realize that addiction is lots of things. It's not always just the gambling, smoking, alcohol, and drugs, that there is so much more to it. Addiction to attention, that's one of the things which surprised me the most. I wouldn't even put that in the same brackets, but absolutely, it gives the same messages to the brain. So I think you don't necessarily need person to admit that they have a problem, because the work would be the same anyway. You would still have them talking about what is it that alcohol gives you, because I think it's about the realization whilst you're doing this, whilst you're in that therapy, whilst you're in that coaching session, whatever you want to call it, depending who your client is, I assume, that this the realization whilst going through it, that promise that you've been given, that you've been hoping that is going to be delivered, actually isn't. So you don't need to admit that you have addiction to alcohol, but you admitting that the promise isn't delivered. And I suppose that would have the same impact on your recovery journey, because I don't need to think that I have a problem with alcohol, but I can see that the alcohol is not giving me what I want. So maybe, that maybe it's not the best way to move forward without actually having the myself.
There may be better ways to get what alcohol has been promising me.
Yeah.
More reliable, more long-term, more permanent ways of getting the satisfactions that alcohol has been promising me. Yeah, and that actually comes from coming around, following the structure and coming to a point where where the benefits, all of the elements of the promise, the big promise, are really laid out in all their glorious beauty, and then the question can be asked, and this is where you do need to be sensitive in the wording. So you get all of these things, and it's no wonder you persist in doing this or that, or enjoy doing this and that, or feel an attraction to doing this and that. It tells me that your brain is working correctly. I mean, anybody with thinking these thoughts and believing them, obviously at the same time, could not avoid feeling an attraction to this, this or that. And actually, if you had these thoughts and you didn't feel an attraction, then I would suspect brain damage or serious poisoning or whatever, some other.
I remember when you said that to me.
Did you have to think about it, Veronica? Did you think,
a little bit? I was like,
maybe I have.
Because if this is what you get out of chocolate, obviously you wanna do it, and then it becomes interesting.
Yeah.
Can I just post a question on, because we've only got just over 15 minutes to go. So someone has asked, from the solution-focused strength-based practices, John, have you been involved in research in Helsinki comparing SFBT with psychodynamic therapy?
Okay. That was a pioneering bit of research funded by the National Pension Agency, which is the NHS equivalent in some aspects, and they compared solution-focused therapists' work with clients and psychodynamic and psychoanalytic client work. And the funny thing is that the people that were doing this solution-focused therapy, none of them had solution-focused therapy training. They were a few pioneers, and then somebody had visited Milwaukee, and some had read a book or two, and they collaborated together, and so it was a really, from the point of view of how professionals are trained, psychotherapy professionals are trained in Finland, like 1,800 hours over 4 years time, for example. So anything that ridiculously small, I mean, they wouldn't have been, none of them would be anywhere near, would have been near being able to register as psychotherapists. So that was the group that was doing the solution focused, that was being compared to psychodynamic and psychoanalytic. And amazingly, the outcomes were more or less identical, but with less sessions. And the 5-year follow-up, the results were retained in both groups, in all comparison groups. So there wasn't much of a difference. But that was before I was engaged with the organization. I was on the board of the Finnish Solution Focused Association, Ratkaus, for many years. I was the chairman for 4 years, but that was in the 2000s, early 2000s. So this was an important part of the history that made it possible to get the solution focused registered 1998, get it recognized as a psychotherapy. And it's actually the only new psychotherapy that made it through into the system And nowadays, solution focused is actually the therapy of choice. So more than all other therapies combined in Finland.
That's amazing.
Solution focused.
Mm.
But it was getting it recognized and accepting that this has to be trained for a period of 3 years, 40, 50 days over a period of 3 years, which was a horrendous idea. But overall, as a movement, we started finding ways of using that for 40, 50 days usefully. And what happened was that there was some resistance to that because there was a fear that some of the old guard will lose their business. But what happened was that the money, the turnover of that area, to use a business term, went up like tenfold because the employers' monies came in. And then being a psychotherapist, your clients are they can get massive subsidies from the government for the therapies, and that drives the prices up. But that also drives the motivation to pay for an expensive 3-year program. But getting it recognized and accepting that, okay, to get it recognized, you have to do it massively. Then, okay, do it. Historically, it's worth doing it. Without that, solution focused would not be as broadly spread and used as it is today. For example, one area, neuropsychiatric coach training, is totally solution focused in this country. No cognitives, no psychodynamics, no anything other than solution focused. The whole field of neuropsychiatric coaching.
That's awesome.
Solution focused.
So, oh God, there's so many things I want to ask. So 8 minutes with Veronica changed her relationship with chocolate. Do you remember what that was, Veronica? What was the moment where you changed that relationship, or did you even know what was happening?
Well, actually, my promise, I don't mind sharing, I shared it with the guys in that workshop. My promise, as John was asking question, was happiness. My chocolate was my peace, quiet, and happiness. And the realization was that doesn't matter how much chocolate I eat, that's not what makes me happy. What makes me happy are my kids, my animals, my husband, my friends, my colleagues. But getting to the point where you have that little light bulb thinking, am I actually happy eating chocolate because I'm getting bigger? I'm getting sick because I'm lactose intolerant. There is a lot, but that all goes under unspoken. So you kind of thinking.
I don't ask it.
Yeah. You don't ask. You don't say, oh, but you're gonna get. Do you like getting fat? That's never been asked, right?
Yeah.
I'm sure there are people who do, and there's no shame in that. But I particularly didn't, and I think all this, the realization that the happiness, the way I imagine happiness, is not that's what's been promised, but it's not being delivered. And I'm happy to say that since I have stopped eating chocolate, I lost almost a stone, and I have not made any other adjustments to my diet. So I think just think that amount I ate in chocolate is just a little shocking. But it was the fact that there was never question, never put blame on me, never. The question has not been asked to make me feel guilty for eating chocolate. And I think in many ways, when I've spoken to some of my clients who might have alcoholic husbands who's been going through AA, I know a lot of therapies that have been offered. They are the best they can be at this time. I'm not putting them down or anything, but a lot of people will feel like there has been blame passed, and that has been talking about, oh, this is what you should be doing. Why aren't you not doing this? And I think lots of people get put off by that. And this is why I wanted to, for FBS to organize this, because I would love John to train our professionals here down in Enfield and in London. We can offer it to anyone, right? But I think that because it was so powerful, and I didn't, as Jason's question was, I didn't realize I had a problem. And being
until it was gone. You didn't realize that you had a problem until it was gone.
Absolutely. And my husband was worried when I first stopped eating chocolate, because he was worried it's going to change my personality because I ate so much of it. So, and I know people in the office were like, oh, where is it going to break? Where is she going to snap? But I think that's because
we're still waiting, Veronica. We're still waiting.
And because it's been 3 months, I would love the working professionals to be able to bring this and take the shame out of addiction, take the not positive thinking, but take the useful thinking and useful questions and self-realization, because I think that was the strongest point, when you realize on your own that what you're doing to yourself is harmful, and that it doesn't bring you the happiness. It doesn't doesn't make you 6 feet tall and bulletproof, right? So I think it's the questioning that helps you bring it out. But because it's solution-focused questioning, you feel welcome, you feel warm, you feel heard, you don't feel ashamed, you don't feel like, I don't feel now if I have chocolate, oh, I done something bad. The beautiful feeling now is I don't need chocolate to be happy. And I think that was why I wanted John to do this with us. That's why I want you to do training. And I hope we're going to do 5 sessions, 90 minutes each. And we're going to keep the dates up to let everybody know. Because, John, honestly, your workshop has changed my relationship with chocolate, but also my relationship with everybody in the office, because they are all annoyed with me. Because I had my mom, who doesn't speak English, but she was like, "Oh, I'm addicted to food. Can John help me? Yeah, can you translate?" I have people coming to me and say, "Oh, you look really good. What have you done different?" I said, "I stopped eating chocolate." "Oh, I'm a chocoholic. I could never stop." And I'm thinking, and you know what? You can. And I think those are the people who would be fantastic, to come and see what it is that you do, but also that we can then, as a therapist, offer this, and people who already work with addictions can change their perspectives a little bit, change the way they question their clients, change the way they run their sessions. And I believe the impact that would be huge. That's, as you said, I can't be trusted. I'm now very subjective because I've been through it myself. But maybe maybe that's the example is the best one.
I think there's a couple of things that come to mind for me, and Asha, I don't know if she agrees or not, but in the UK, let's say you're an abuser in a relationship, most programs won't take you on unless you admit that you're an abuser. Do you know what I mean? So it has to come from that starting point. So it's not almost like what you're saying, you must have a very good reason for doing what you do. Let's examine that. And what can we replace that payoff with? Do you see what I mean? Whereas here it's like, unless I put my hand up and admit to it, which a lot of people will do because they've been court mandated, but they don't really believe it. And I think it sets up this adversarial kind of relationship, whereas what it sounds like you're saying is, okay, let's go along with that. There's a good reason for you to do it. but what can we replace that with? Because it's not giving you, it's only temporary. That feeling of whatever it is, that serotonin, dopamine release, whatever, is temporary. And you spoke before we came on air about some training coming up about addiction. That tell us about that. What's going to be different about that?
Well, I love interactive workshops. Partly because I'm learning all the time from people, from their feedbacks. I love the critical questions because they give me an opportunity to slow down and refine or even change what I've been thinking up to then. And that's addictive for me. So whatever training I do it in highly interactive ways, and that means that people have an experience of the matter, of the material, and not just I've seen 25 slides this time. And the only thing that gets practice in watching a slideshow is your neck muscles.
Next slide.
Helping people is a psychosocial skill. And you don't learn a psychosocial skill just by watching slides. So I love, for many reasons, I love highly interactive ways of working with groups. I prefer in person, of course, because here we're dealing with subject matter that's potentially delicate and sensitive, and then the nuances of an encounter are more easily visible and more directly experienced when we're working in the same space, of course. So one structure might be a day in London, together in person in the same physical space, and then follow up with a series of 2-hour or 4-hour sessions spaced out so that there's time for practice and feedback from the real world the next time coming together. That generates more new ideas and more interaction and more change.
I think that's really important as well, what you're saying, John, about, okay, I've been to a workshop, I've got these ideas, I'm going to try them, but there's no follow-up. So by having those follow-up sessions, it's like, so what's worked, what didn't work, how can we refine it? I think that's great. So if I was coming to your addiction training, what would be different if I went to any other addiction training?
You would be equipped to do something different with your clients. You would be equipped and prepared to see things differently in your client and to hear different things in your client, your client's speech. You would have new channels opened, and that would be a channel to the deep motivations that the addiction feeds on. And it wouldn't be addictive if it didn't feed on something really deep and relevant, even from a point of view of a purpose in life. And tapping into that, being able to tap into that in a new way, without needing to do a 3-year psychoanalysis on it. That would be something.
Sold me, John.
So I was in before we even came online.
John, I'm going to need to buy a lot of gift vouchers for your sessions to hand out to people and say, go and contact John. Because, I mean, I've been sitting back listening to you guys and doing other things in the background. And I feel completely inspired to learn more, to be able to change my mindset, to be able to help other people. Even though it's a very strength-based, solution-focused mindset, there's always room to expand on everything that you already think you know, which you probably don't know. And like you said before, we learn from our clients, we learn from the people that we're delivering training to. You kind of walk away thinking, I'm going to, and reflect on your own practice and think, what can I do better next time? And see where that kind of takes us. But I've been totally inspired. We have actually come to the end, so I'm very sorry. I'm going to give you guys a couple of minutes to reflect on this conversation. John, if there's anything that you want to add to the FBS chat, please do. Now is your moment to do so.
Well, I'm happy for an opportunity to share and reflect with you guys on it. So I think in any case, whatever the format would be, I have a very strong preference for spacing things out to allow for feedback from the real world, rather than doing like 5 days, morning till night intensives, which was the way to do Gestalt back in the day. Intensive, the intensity comes in a different way. In these ways of working, it comes from the visceral experience of real life and encounters, and open and seeing new things in addition to what you've already been able to see. So not really changing your mindset, but expanding it, bringing in like a few new channels to listen to.
Yeah, I think the dangerous thing at the moment is that the three of us tomorrow will be saying to the rest of our colleagues, John is so lovely. Oh, John is
What's
so
that risk?
It's contagious.
I mean,
Veronica,
we have
It's
an
addictive.
addiction.
Yeah.
Honestly, because I'm just thinking, they've missed out on this live conversation. I mean, they're listening. They're actually listening right now and watching the broadcast. But yeah, I can see what Veronica's talking about. All right, Veronica, I'll let you get away with it. But luckily, Joe and I can't be sacked, so it's okay.
Yes. We can reprimand ourselves.
We can reprimand ourselves. There you go.
Or each other. I think for me with John, it's fantastic talking to you, and it's great we kept in touch, and I'm really looking forward for a future collaboration, because I think there's a lot of potential, because this is completely missing, or if it is around, I'm not aware. And I think it is really powerful, because the way of solution focus on its own, it's very powerful. But the way questions can be asked has changed the way you view the addiction, and I think that is proper step forward. So I'm really looking forward to collaborating and being able to attend more sessions, more trainings.
Yeah.
Okay.
And
Definitely.
now everybody froze. I'm here on my own.
No, you're still moving.
No, you're still here.
It's just your screen, I think.
Good.
Yeah. Let's please get in touch. Let's arrange something, John. Let's advertise it out, because I think what you've been saying makes a lot of sense to us.
So hopefully you're not as aggravated by Veronica anymore.
No.
I think we're going to aggravate her.
Is she forgiven?
Yeah, she's forgiven.
I'm forgiven.
And and that idea that you wake up in the morning, but you still have the same feeling, but without the alcohol, I think.
Yeah, and that would be with alcohol. It would be like the Friday evening between 8 and 10, when things are glorious. After that, it starts. It's not quite as glorious. So identifying, part of the technique is identifying the best moment. And working from there.
No.
So it would be Friday evening, 8 p.m. forever.
Right.
That's the
And
stuff of the
That sounds like such a simple question, doesn't it? It sounds like a really simple, obvious question to ask, but you get caught up in that, you know.
Oh, why are you doing this? You know, when you drink, it's not good for the kids. You know, you are horrible, but actually, twist it around.
Yeah. Not going against the grain again.
But that's just one way of continuing from certain ways of opening up the discussion. So there are multiple ways to follow up with this, and this sort of discussion will open up new ways to use all of the tools that you already are familiar with.
Yep.
I love
Brilliant.
it. Thank you very much, the four of you. I'm now going to draw it to a close. John, if you could just stay there, not push any buttons. Joe, you definitely shouldn't press any buttons because he's notorious for that. Thank you, everybody who was watching live, and hello to those who are catching up on it via YouTube. Our next FBS chat will be on October the 16th with Adam Broadhead, which I'm sure is going to be just as great as John, although it's going to be very, very hard to make that happen, Adam, just saying. But thank you, everybody, for watching. No pressure. No pressure. But thank you, everybody, for watching. And thank you for all the wonderful comments for John. And I will pass on the comments later on. Well, tomorrow. I'm not doing it tonight. Take care, everybody. Thank you.
Night.
Thank you.
Thank you.